Evelyn Carter stepped into the Silver Horizon's elite dining car, her 68-year-old frame radiating quiet grace under the Midwest dusk. Passengers barely noticed until Miles Grayson, a smug white steward, slapped her cheek, snarling, "She didn't belong." Gasps erupted, but silence followed. Evelyn clutched her stinging face, her calm shattering as her phone buzzed with a text from Victor, her husband, the train line's owner. One humiliating slap sparked a wildfire that would burn lives to ash. What chaos would erupt from this single brutal moment? Before we dive in, tell us where you're watching from. If you stand for justice against all odds, hit like and subscribe for more gripping tales of courage. Evelyn Carter stood in the Silver Horizon's dining car, the sting of Miles Grayson's slap still pulsing across her cheek. The room buzzed with the clink of crystal glasses and the low hum of privileged chatter, all framed by polished mahogany. Walls and chandeliers casting golden light across the elite passengers. Her 68-year-old frame, clad in a tailored emerald blouse and cream slacks, held a quiet elegance that seemed to unnerve the space. Her dark skin gleamed softly, her silver-streaked hair swept into a tight chignon, but the red mark on her face screamed louder than her poise. She took a breath, steadying herself, her brown eyes narrowing as she locked onto Miles. He stood a few feet away, adjusting his crisp navy uniform, his pale face flushed with a mix of arrogance and irritation. The slap had been a reflex, a snap judgment that she didn't fit among the wealthy white faces sipping champagne. Now, he avoided her gaze, pretending to fuss with a tray of hors d'oeuvres. Evelyn's voice cut through the murmurs, firm and measured. "You owe me an apology." The words landed like stones in a still pond, rippling outward. A few passengers glanced up, forks pausing midair, while others shifted uncomfortably in their plush velvet seats. Miles froze, his thin lips curling into a sneer. "An apology? Lady, you're lucky I didn't call security. You shouldn't even be here." His tone dripped with disdain, his blue eyes raking over her as if she were a smudge on the pristine car. Evelyn's chest tightened, but she held her ground, her years of facing down petty slights sharpening her resolve. "My ticket says otherwise," she replied, pulling the crisp paper from her pocket and holding it up for all to see. "First class, seat 7, Evelyn Carter. Check it." Miles snatched the ticket, his fingers brushing hers with deliberate roughness. He scanned it, his brow furrowing as the embossed lettering confirmed her claim. The dining car grew quieter, the weight of curious stares pressing in. A woman in a fur stole whispered to her husband, her voice carrying a hint of mockery. "She must have gotten it by mistake." A man in a pinstripe suit chuckled, his mustache twitching. Evelyn ignored them, her focus laser-sharp on Miles. She recited the ticket number aloud, her voice rising with each digit. 52983, first class paid in full. So, tell me again why you think I don't belong. The room shifted, a few passengers exchanging uneasy glances. Miles's flush deepened, his authority cracking under her calm defiance. He stammered, clutching the ticket. This has to be a mix-up. I'll verify it with the manager." He turned on his heel, storming toward the rear of the car, his polished shoes clicking against the hardwood floor. Evelyn exhaled, her hand trembling slightly as she tucked a loose strand of hair behind her ear. She felt a flicker of triumph, a small victory in proving her place. The passengers' whispers grew louder, some laced with suspicion, others with begrudging respect. She pulled her phone from her purse, a sleek black device that gleamed under the chandelier light, and typed a quick message to Victor. "Steward slapped me, says I don't belong in first class. Handle it." Her husband's reply buzzed back, instantly. "On it. They'll regret this." A faint smile tugged at her lips, the promise of justice warming her. Victor Carter owned the Silver Horizon line, a titan of industry who'd built it from nothing. If anyone could turn this around, it was him. She slipped the phone back into her bag, her posture straightening as she prepared to wait out Miles's return. The dining car hummed with tension, the clatter of silverware a thin mask over the unease. A young couple near the window stole glances at her, their faces a mix of curiosity and discomfort. An older man in a tweed jacket muttered something about standard slipping, his voice low but audible. Evelyn paid them no mind, her gaze fixed on the doorway Miles had vanished through. She'd faced worse than this. Decades of sidelong looks and barbed comments had forged her into steel. But the slap, that raw act of violence, gnawed at her. It wasn't just an insult. It was a declaration that her presence, her very existence, offended him. She clenched her fists, nails digging into her palms, channeling the anger into focus. Minutes ticked by, each one stretching longer than the last. The train rocked gently, its wheels humming against the tracks as the Midwest plains blurred past the windows in shades of amber and gray. Then the door swung open, and Miles re-entered, trailed by a hulking figure in a black suit. Harold Tate, the train manager, loomed over 6 feet, his broad shoulders filling the frame. His graying hair was slicked back, his face etched with lines that spoke of years enforcing order. He carried an air of authority, his dark eyes scanning the room before settling on Evelyn. Miles lingered behind him, a smirk playing on his lips. Emboldened by his superior's presence, Harold stepped forward, his voice booming. "Mrs. Carter, is it? We've got a problem." Evelyn tilted her head, meeting his gaze without flinching. "The only problem I see is your steward assaulting me. I've shown my ticket, it's valid. So, what's this about?" Harold's lips pressed into a thin line, his hands clasped behind his back. "I've reviewed the manifest. You're listed for first class, sure, but we've had complaints." He gestured vaguely toward the passengers, though none spoke up. "Some folks feel uncomfortable with you here. For everyone's comfort, I'm asking you to move to the rear car." The words hit like a second slap, sharper and colder. Evelyn's breath caught, her mind racing. Complaints? She hadn't spoken to anyone but Miles. This was a lie, a flimsy excuse draped in politeness to mask the truth. Her blackness unsettled them. The dining car erupted in soft murmurs, a few passengers nodding approvingly while others looked away, unwilling to meet her eyes. Miles crossed his arms, his smirk widening as if he'd won some unspoken game. Evelyn's pulse thundered in her ears, but she kept her voice steady. "Uncomfortable? I paid for this seat. I was attacked, not the other way around. If anyone should move, it's him." She pointed at Miles, her finger unwavering. Harold's jaw tightened, his patience thinning. "I'm not here to argue, ma'am. This is my train, my rules. You can move quietly, or we'll make it official at the next stop." The threat hung heavy, a veiled promise of worse to come. Evelyn weighed her options, her pride warring with pragmatism. Victor's text echoed in her mind. He'd fix this. She just had to hold on. With a slow nod, she gathered her purse, her movements deliberate. "Fine, I'll move. But this isn't over." Harold grunted, satisfied, and motioned for her to follow. Miles trailed behind, his eyes glinting with triumph. The passengers watched, some with pity, others with relief as Evelyn stepped toward the door. Her victory, that fleeting moment of proving her right to be there, dissolved into ash. She'd shown her ticket, shamed Miles in front of everyone, and still, they'd found a way to push her out. The chandelier light caught the edge of her emerald blouse as she passed, a stark contrast to the muted grays of the rear car awaiting her. Her phone buzzed again, Victor no doubt, but she didn't check it yet. She needed to see this through, to face the next blow head-on. The walk to the rear felt like a parade of shame, Harold's heavy steps echoing beside her, Miles's lighter, one's a smug counterpoint. The dining car faded behind them, replaced by narrower halls and dimmer lights. Evelyn's mind churned, piecing together the manager's words. "Complaints," he'd said. But she'd seen no one complain. It was a power play, a way to erase her presence from their gilded bubble. Her skin, her age, her quiet confidence, they didn't fit the image they wanted. She clenched her jaw, vowing to make them pay. Victor's influence loomed large, a lifeline she clung to. But as they reached the rear car's threshold, Harold's parting words chilled her. "Stay out of trouble, Mrs. Carter. We don't need any more disruptions." The door clicked shut behind her, sealing her fate, for now. Evelyn sank into a hard, narrow seat, the rear car a jarring shift from the dining car's luxury. The air smelled of stale coffee and sweat, the walls scuffed and peeling. Passengers here were packed tight, their faces tired, their clothes worn. She was an outsider again, relegated to the margins. Her phone glowed with Victor's message. "I'm calling the board. They're done," she typed back, her fingers steady despite the chaos. "Hurry." The train rattled on, the plane stretching endlessly outside. She'd won a skirmish, forced Miles to falter, but Harold's intervention flipped it all. Came. Real fight was just beginning, and she knew it would get uglier. Her cheek still throbbed, a reminder of the stakes. Whatever came next, she'd face it with the same steel she'd always carried. Evelyn Carter stepped into the rear car of the Silver Horizon, the air thick with the sour tang of sweat and the faint buzz of flickering fluorescent lights. Harold Tate's hulking frame loomed ahead, his black suit a stark silhouette against the peeling beige walls, while Miles Grayson trailed behind, his Navy uniform pristine despite the chaos he'd ignited. The cramped space was a far cry from the dining car's polished elegance, its narrow seats stuffed with passengers whose tired eyes flicked toward her. Evelyn's emerald blouse caught the dim glow, her cream slacks brushing against a sticky armrest as she moved. Her cheek still burned from Miles's slap, but she held her head high, her silver-streaked chignon unruffled. Harold gestured to a middle seat between a snoring man in a frayed jacket and a woman clutching a crying toddler. "Sit here," he barked, his voice a low rumble, "and keep quiet." Evelyn's stomach twisted, the indignity of it all clawing at her. She'd shown her ticket, proven her place, yet here she was, banished to this noisy, stifling hole. Passengers gawked as she passed, some with pity, others with blank stares, their whispers a soft hiss beneath the train's rhythmic clatter. "What'd she do?" a teenage boy muttered, his hoodie shadowing his face. "Probably mouthed off," an older woman replied, her lips pursed. Evelyn ignored them, her 68-year-old frame settling into the hard seat with a grace that defied the moment. Harold loomed over her, his dark eyes cold. "This is where you belong now. Don't make it worse." Miles smirked, leaning against a wall, his arms crossed as if savoring her fall. Evelyn met his gaze, her brown eyes blazing. "You think this ends here?" she asked, her voice steady. Harold grunted and turned away, his heavy steps fading as he led Miles back toward the dining car. The door slammed shut, sealing Evelyn in. The rear car pulsed with life, a chaotic symphony of coughing, chatter, and the toddler's wails. She pulled her sleek black phone from her purse, its screen glowing against the gloom. Her fingers danced across it, dialing Victor. He picked, up on the first ring, his deep voice crackling through. "Evelyn, what the hell's happening?" She kept her tone even, recounting the slap, the forced move, the lies about complaints. Victor's fury erupted, loud enough that the snoring man beside her twitched. "They slapped you, moved you, I'm firing them all. The board's hearing about this now." Evelyn's chest loosened, a spark of hope flaring. Victor owned the Silver Horizon line, his word was law. "Make it fast," she said. "They're digging in." He promised swift action, and she hung up, her lips curving faintly. Justice was coming, she could taste it, could. The train rocked, its wheels grinding against the tracks as the Midwest plains stretched beyond the smudged window, a blur of dusk-lit fields. Evelyn leaned back, her hands folding in her lap, her mind racing. She'd faced racism before. Store. Clerks trailing her, neighbors clutching purses. But this was raw, public, a slap that echoed beyond her skin. Victor's power was her shield, and she clung to it, imagining Miles and Harold groveling by morning. The toddler's cries softened, the mother cooing in a low voice, and for a moment Evelyn felt steady. She'd endured worse and come out stronger. This was just another battle, one she'd win. But then the door creaked open, and Harold's broad shadow filled the frame again, his face twisted with a smirk that chilled her. He lumbered toward her, his suit jacket straining against his shoulders. "Mrs. Carter," he said, his voice dripping with false courtesy. "We've got an issue. Your ticket's showing as invalid. System glitch, looks like. You'll need to pay a fine, $200, or we're putting you off at the next stop." Evelyn's breath caught, her hope curdling into disbelief. "Invalid? I showed it to Miles. You saw it too. This is nonsense." Harold shrugged, his smirk widening. "System says what it says. Pay up or you're out." The passengers around her shifted, eyes darting between them. The teenage boy pulled out his phone, filming discreetly, while the woman with the toddler whispered to her neighbor. Evelyn's pulse hammered, but she kept her composure, digging into her purse. "Fine," she snapped, pulling out crisp bills. "Take it, but this isn't over." Harold pocketed the money, his fingers brushing hers with a deliberate slowness that made her skin crawl. "Good choice," he said, turning away. Evelyn exhaled, her hands trembling as she stuffed her wallet back. She'd paid to stay, to buy time for Victor's wrath to hit. The fine was a shakedown, a petty jab to grind her down, but she'd outlast it. The train jolted, the lights flickering, and she leaned against the seat, her mind replaying Harold's smirk. What kind of man fabricated a glitch to punish her? How deep did this go? She glanced at the boy filming, his lens a silent witness. Maybe that would help. Maybe the truth would spread. She closed her eyes, willing herself to stay calm, when a shadow fell over her again. Miles stood there, a tray of coffee cups in, his hands, his blue eyes glinting with malice. "Thought you might need a drink," he said, his voice syrupy. Before she could respond, he tilted the tray, and a stream of scalding coffee splashed across her lap. Pain seared through her thighs, the heat soaking her cream slacks, and she gasped, lurching forward. Miles stepped back, his smirk morphing into a mock gasp. "Oops, guess that's what you get for causing trouble." The liquid burned, her skin prickling as the stain spread, dark and ugly against the fabric. Passengers gasped, the boy's phone swinging toward the scene. The mother, clutching her toddler tighter. Evelyn's hands shook, her blouse sticking to her chest as she fought the urge to scream. "You did that on purpose," she hissed, her voice raw. Miles shrugged, his innocence a flimsy mask. "Accidents happen. Should have stayed quiet." He sauntered off, leaving her soaked and seething. The rear car buzzed, voices rising in shock and murmurs. Did he just... That's awful. She didn't deserve that. Evelyn clenched her fists, the pain in her legs a roaring fire, but her mind sharpened. This wasn't an accident. It was a message. They wanted her broken, humiliated, silenced. Her phone buzzed, Victor again, but she couldn't check it yet. She grabbed a wad of napkins from her purse, blotting the coffee, her movements jerky. The boy with the phone leaned closer, his voice low. "I got it all. You okay?" She nodded, her jaw tight. "Keep filming," she whispered. "They'll pay for this." The hope Victor had sparked flickered, drowned by the scalding reality. She'd paid their fine, thinking it'd buy peace, only to face this vicious retaliation. What kind of monsters were they? The train rattled on, the plains outside darkening into night, stars pricking the sky. Evelyn's legs throbbed, the burns, a constant ache, but her resolve hardened. Miles and Harold thought they'd won, thought they could bury her here. They didn't know Victor, didn't know her. She'd rise from this, make them regret every second. But as the pain pulsed, a question gnawed at her. How far would they go to keep her down? Hey folks, what do you think? Comment number 1, if you're raging at Miles's cruelty. Number 2, if you'd fight back like Evelyn. If this injustice fires you up, smash that like button and subscribe for more stories of grit and payback. Was this a random attack, or is something bigger brewing? Stick around to find out what's their next move against her. Evelyn Carter sat in the rear car of the Silver Horizon, the scalding coffee still seeping into her cream slacks, her thighs throbbing with every jolt of the train. The cramped space buzzed with restless energy, the fluorescent lights casting harsh shadows across the worn seats and scuffed floor. Passengers packed the rows, their faces a mix of exhaustion and curiosity, the air thick with the mingled scents of cheap cologne and unwashed clothes. Evelyn's emerald blouse clung to her chest, damp with sweat and coffee, but her 68-year-old frame remained upright, her silver-streaked chignon a defiant crown. The teenage boy who'd filmed Miles's attack hovered nearby, his hoodie pulled low, his phone still in hand. "Name's Jamal," he said, his voice a quiet rasp. "That video's blowing up online." Evelyn nodded, her brown eyes flicking to his screen where the clip looped, Miles's smirk, The splash of coffee, her gasp of pain. The rear car hummed with whispers, passengers craning their necks to see her. A woman in a faded red scarf clutched a tattered paperback, her gaze soft with sympathy. A burly man in a trucker hat muttered under his breath, his words lost in the train's rumble. Jamal tapped his phone, showing Evelyn the post he'd uploaded to X, tagged with that darn Silver Horizon scandal. 2,000 views already, he said, his dark eyes wide. People are pissed. Evelyn's lips twitched, a faint spark of power igniting in her chest. She'd been humiliated, burned, pushed to the edges. But now, the world was watching. Her phone buzzed. Victor again. Boards. On it. Stay strong, she typed back, her fingers steady despite the ache. It's spreading. Hurry! The train rocked, the Midwest night pressing against the smudged windows, stars glinting like distant promises. Jamal leaned closer, his voice dropping. You gonna let that punk get away with it? Evelyn's jaw tightened, her mind replaying. Miles's sneer, Harold's cold dismissal. No, she said, her tone sharp as a blade. He'll answer for it. She pushed herself up, ignoring the sting in her legs, and strode toward the rear car's narrow aisle. Passengers parted, their murmurs growing louder, a few pulling out phones to record. She marched back toward the dining car, her purse slung over her shoulder, her steps firm despite the pain. The door loomed ahead, a steel barrier between her and the elite space she'd been banished from. She shoved it open, the hinges squealing, and stepped into the polished glow of chandeliers and mahogany. Miles stood near a table, pouring wine. For a couple in tailored suits, his navy uniform crisp as ever. He froze as Evelyn entered, the bottle trembling in his hand, a splash of red staining the white tablecloth. The dining car fell silent, forks clinking to a halt, eyes swiveling. Toward her. You, she said, her voice ringing out. You think you can slap me, burn me, and walk away? Apologize. Now. Miles's pale face flushed, his blue eyes darting to the passengers, seeking support. I don't know what you're talking about, he stammered, his voice cracking. Evelyn stepped closer, her stained slacks a glaring testament to his lie. 2,000 people online say otherwise. You're done. The room erupted, a few passengers clapping, others shouting encouragement. Tell him, lady. A man in a silk tie called. Make him squirm, a woman in pearls added, her voice sharp. Miles's flush deepened, his hands balling into fists. You're crazy, he spat, but the tremor in his tone betrayed him. Evelyn held her ground, her gaze unyielding. The video doesn't lie. You do. The clapping grew louder, a wave of support washing over her. She felt the tide shifting, the power of the crowd lifting her. Victor's text buzzed again. Boards furious, firings imminent. Her chest swelled, the promise of retribution so close she could taste it. Miles backed away, his smirk gone, his eyes wild with panic. He stumbled toward the rear door, muttering about checking something, but the passengers' cheers drowned him out. Evelyn stood tall, her dignity clawing its way back, the dining car hers for a fleeting moment. The chandeliers gleamed overhead, casting golden light across the crystal glasses and silver trays, but the elegance felt hollow. The passengers' applause faded into murmurs, some returning to their meals, others still filming her with their phones. Evelyn's legs burned, the coffee's heat a relentless pulse, but she refused to sit. She'd won this round, shamed Miles in front of his precious elite, and the world beyond the train was rallying. She imagined Victor storming into a boardroom, his voice booming, heads rolling. Her phone glowed with notifications. Jamal's video had hit 10,000 views, comments flooding in. Justice for her! Fire that creep! The support fueled her, a lifeline against the rear car's misery. Then the intercom crackled, Harold Tate's voice booming through the car, deep and commanding. Attention, passengers, we've identified a disruptive individual in first class. For your safety and comfort, Evelyn Carter is hereby banned from this section permanently. Thank you for your understanding. The words slammed into her, a sucker punch that stole her breath. The dining car buzzed, passengers exchanging shocked glances, a few nodding approval. "About time," the man in the tweed jacket muttered, his mustache twitching. "She's trouble," the woman in the fur stole whispered, her voice smug. Evelyn's victory crumbled, the cheers turning to dust. She'd faced Miles down, turned the crowd to her side, only to be branded a threat by the man pulling the strings. Harold's voice faded, the intercom clicking off, and the dining car settled into an uneasy hum. Evelyn's hands trembled, her purse slipping slightly in her grip. She'd thought the video, the support, Victor's power would shield her. But Harold had flipped it, twisted her defiance into a crime. The passengers' eyes shifted, some with pity, others with suspicion, the tide she'd ridden now pulling back. She turned, her head high, and walked back toward the rear car, her stained slacks a banner of her fight. The door loomed again, a mocking gatekeeper, and she pushed through, the noise of the rear car swallowing her once more. Jamal met her gaze, his phone still out. "They can't do that, can they?" he asked, his voice tight. "They just did," she replied, sinking into her seat, her legs screaming. The rear car pulsed with its own rhythm, the toddler's cries a faint echo, the snoring man oblivious to the drama. Evelyn's phone buzzed. Victor, furious. "Harold's gone too far. I'm on the line with the board now," she typed back, her fingers shaking. "They're burying me. Stop them." The train rattled on, the night outside a void of black, the planes lost to darkness. She'd confronted Miles, rallied the dining car, felt the world's eyes on her, sighed. But Harold's announcement shredded it all, a calculated strike to erase her. Her burns throbbed, a cruel reminder of Miles's attack, and now this ban cemented her exile. What kind of power did Harold wield to defy Victor? How could he turn her fight into a mark against her? Then Miles reappeared, his smirk back, a glint of triumph in his eyes. He leaned against the doorframe, his voice low and venomous. "You thought you'd win with your little video? You're nothing here." Before she could retort, he grabbed her arm, his grip bruising, and yanked her toward a storage closet at the car's end. "You're dangerous," he hissed, shoving her inside. The door slammed shut, the lock clicking, plunging her into darkness. The closet reeked of mildew and oil, shelves of cleaning supplies rattling with the train's motion. Evelyn stumbled, her shoulder hitting a metal rack, pain flaring. Anew, her purse fell, her phone skittering across the floor, its screen glowing faintly in the gloom. She pounded on the door, her fists echoing in the tight space, her voice hoarse. "Let me out! You can't do this!" Miles's laughter filtered through, muffled but sharp. "Stay put, troublemaker." The rear car's noise faded, leaving her alone with the hum of the train and the sting of her burns. Her victory, the confrontation, the crowd's cheers, the viral video, had been a mirage. Miles and Harold had struck back, harder, locking her away like an animal. Her phone buzzed, Victor's name flashing, but the signal flickered, weak, in the closet's depths. She sank to the floor, her slacks sticking to her legs, her mind racing. They'd pushed her down again, but she wouldn't break. Not yet. The world was watching. Jamal's video was proof. But as the darkness pressed in, a chill settled over her. What would they do next to silence her? Evelyn Carter crouched in the Silver Horizon storage closet, the darkness swallowing her 68-year-old frame as the train's rumble vibrated through the metal floor. The air hung heavy with mildew and the sharp bite of bleach, shelves of cleaning supplies rattling around her, their edges digging into her shoulders. Her emerald blouse stuck to her sweat-slicked skin, her cream slacks stiff with dried coffee, the burns on her thighs pulsing with every shift. Her silver-streaked chignon had loosened, strands falling across her face, but her brown eyes burned with defiance. She pounded the locked door, her fists thudding against steel, the sound swallowed by the closet's tight walls. "Let me out!" she shouted, her voice raw, scraping her throat. Miles's mocking laughter had faded, but his words, "troublemaker," echoed in her mind, a taunt that fueled her rage. Her sleek black phone lay on the floor, its screen flickering with a weak signal. Victor's last text glowing faintly. "Board's furious, I'm stopping the train." She snatched it up, her fingers trembling as she dialed him again. The call crackled, static cutting through his deep voice. "Evelyn, where are you?" They're saying you're causing a riot." Her breath hitched, the absurdity of it twisting her gut. "They locked me in a closet, Victor. Miles did it. Said I'm dangerous." His roar exploded through the speaker, loud enough to rattle a nearby bottle of disinfectant. "A closet? I'm calling an emergency stop right now. Hang on." The line went dead, the signal dropping, leaving her with the hum of the train and the faint hope of his words. Evelyn pressed her ear to the door, straining to hear beyond the closet's confines. The rear car's noise filtered through, muffled, voices, the toddler's cries, the clatter of luggage. She imagined Jamal out there, his phone still rolling, capturing the chaos. Her viral moment in the dining car, the cheers, the 10,000 views. It had all led to this, a cage meant to break her. Her burns throbbed, a cruel reminder of Miles's coffee attack, and now this confinement piled on the insult. She slid, her hands along the shelves searching for anything, a tool, a weapon, but found only rags and half-empty spray bottles. The train jolted, the wheels screeching faintly, and she braced herself against a rack, her mind racing. Victor's stop was coming, she just had to hold out. Minutes stretched into an eternity, the darkness pressing in, her breaths shallow in the stale air. Then a faint clatter sounded above, a vent near the ceiling, its grill loose. A whisper, followed, urgent and familiar. "Mrs. Carter, it's Jamal." Her heart leapt, her eyes snapping upward. She climbed onto a crate, her burned legs screaming, and peered through the slats. Jamal's face appeared, his hoodie framing wide, worried eyes. "They're saying you attacked someone. It's bullshit. Here." He slid a small key through the vent, its metal glinting as it dropped into her palm. "Found it in the crew room. Get out fast." Evelyn clutched the key, her voice a fierce whisper. "Thank you. Keep filming." He nodded and vanished, the vent clanging shut. She stumbled down, her hands shaking as she jammed the key into the lock. It turned with a click, the door swinging open, flooding the closet with the rear cars. Dim light. Evelyn stepped out, her purse clutched tight, her stained clothes a badge of her ordeal. The rear car buzzed, passengers staring as she emerged, some gasping, others filming. "She's out!" the woman in the red scarf called, her paperback forgotten. "They locked her up?" the burly trucker growled, his fists clenching. Evelyn straightened, her resolve steeling, and marched back toward the dining car, the key, still warm in her hand. The train slowed, its brakes whining, Victor's emergency stop kicking in. She'd escaped their trap, turned their lock against them, and now she'd make them face her. The dining car's door loomed ahead, its polished frame a stark contrast to the rear's decay. Evelyn shoved it open, the chandelier's golden light washing over her as she stormed in. Miles stood near a dessert cart, his navy uniform crisp, chatting with a woman in a sapphire gown. Harold loomed by the bar, his black suit a shadow against the mahogany. Both froze as Evelyn entered, her presence a thunderclap in the room. Passengers turned, forks dropping, a hush falling over the elite space. "You locked me in a closet," she said, her voice slicing through the silence, aimed at Miles. "Called me dangerous. Apologize, or this train stops for good." Miles paled, his smirk vanishing, his hands fumbling with a tray. Harold stepped forward, his face a mask of forced calm. "Mrs. Carter, let's not escalate this." The room buzzed, passengers leaning forward, phones out, capturing every word. Evelyn held up the key, its silver gleam a silent accusation. "You think this hides what you did? The world's watching." The train shuddered, slowing further, the brakes groaning as Victor's will took hold. Harold's eyes narrowed, but the crowd's pressure bore down. A man in a velvet blazer shouted, "She's right. Apologize." A woman in gold earrings clapped, her voice sharp. "You can't lock people up," Miles stammered, his blue eyes darting to Harold for rescue. I didn't mean—" Harold cut in, his voice smooth but strained. All right. We're sorry, Mrs. Carter, it was a misunderstanding. Take your seat back." He gestured to her old table, the one she'd been slapped away from, his apology a grudging surrender. Evelyn's chest swelled, her escape and confrontation flipping the script. She'd broken free, rallied the passengers again, and forced their hand. The dining car hummed with tension, the elite crowd split, some cheering, others scowling. She nodded, her voice firm. "I'll sit, but this isn't over." She moved to the table, her stained slacks brushing the velvet chair, her purse settling. Beside her, Harold retreated, his jaw tight, while Miles slunk toward the bar, his defeat palpable. The train ground to a near halt, the windows framing a dark expanse of plains, the stop moments away. Evelyn's phone buzzed. Victor. Almost. They're finished. She felt the weight lifting, justice inching closer, the passenger's support a shield. She'd won this round, reclaimed her place, and the world beyond the train was still raging online. The chandeliers flickered as the train settled, the brakes hissing their final note. Evelyn sat tall, her burns a dull ache, her dignity clawing, back from the closet's depths. She'd escaped, faced them down, and turned their lock into her weapon. But then a group of passengers near the window stirred, their voices rising, sharp and accusing. A woman in a crimson dress stood, her face pinched with fury. "She's faking it," she snapped, pointing at Evelyn. "That video's staged. She's after attention." A man in a gray suit joined in, his voice booming. "Yeah, I saw her slip that key in herself. She's a fraud." The room tilted, murmurs spreading like wildfire. Evelyn's breath caught, her triumph souring as the crowd turned. Miles perked up from the bar, his smirk creeping back, feeding off the shift. "Told you she's trouble," he called, loud enough for all to hear. The passenger's phone swung toward her again, but now the lenses felt hostile, their cheers morphing into jeers. "Liar!" a woman in a mink coat shouted, hurling a bread roll that struck Evelyn's shoulder. "Get her out!" a man in a bow tie roared, tossing a napkin that fluttered to her feet. Evelyn shielded herself as more food flew. Grapes, a chunk of cheese, a splash of wine staining her blouse anew. The dining car erupted, a mob forming, their voices a cacophony of rage. "Fraud! Fraud!" they chanted, egged on by Miles's gleeful nods. Evelyn's hand shook, her purse a flimsy barrier as the barrage intensified. She'd escaped the closet, won the apology, felt Victor's stop closing in, only for this vicious twist to strike. The passengers she'd rallied, the ones who'd clapped, now pelted her with their scorn, their food, their hate. Her burns flared, her shoulder stinging from the roll, but her mind raced faster. This wasn't random, it was orchestrated. Miles's poison seeping into the crowd. The woman in crimson sneered, "You don't belong here staging your little show." The man in gray loomed closer, his fist clenched. "Admit it or we'll make you." Evelyn stood, her voice cutting through the chaos. "I'm no fraud. You saw what they did." But her words drowned in the mob's roar, the dining car a battlefield. The train stood still, the planes outside a silent witness to her fall. Evelyn's victory, the escape, the confrontation, the apology, shattered under the weight of their accusations. Miles grinned from the sidelines, Harold watching with a cold glint, their retaliation sharper than the closet's lock. She'd thought the world's eyes, Victor's power, would protect her, but this mob proved otherwise. Her phone buzzed again, Victor's name a lifeline, but she couldn't reach it, her hands blocking the onslaught. The dining car spun, a gilded cage turned hostile, and she knew the fight was far from won. They'd locked her in, let her out, only to bury her in this fresh hell. Evelyn Carter stood in the Silver Horizons dining car, her 68-year-old frame a lone pillar amid the storm of flying food and venomous shouts. The chandeliers cast fractured light across the mahogany tables, glinting off crystal glasses, now abandoned as passengers turned into a snarling mob. Her emerald blouse was splattered with wine, her cream slacks stiff with coffee stains and grape juice, the burns on her thighs screaming beneath the fabric. Bread rolls thudded against her chest, a chunk of brie smeared across her arm, and a splash of champagne stung her eyes. Her silver-streaked chignon hung loose, strands plastered to her sweat-drenched face, but her brown eyes blazed, unbowed. The passengers' chants, "Fraud, fraud," rattled the gilded space, their faces twisted with rage, spurred by Miles Grayson's gleeful taunts from the bar. "See, she's a liar," he shouted, his navy uniform a mocking beacon of authority. Evelyn shielded her face with her purse, the leather pocked with crumbs, her voice rising above the din. "I'm no fraud. You saw him lock me up." But her words were swallowed by the mob's fury, the woman in the crimson dress hurling a butter knife that clattered at her feet. "You staged it all," she screeched, her pearls bouncing with each wild gesture. The man in the gray suit loomed, closer, his fist raised, his voice a growl. "Admit it or we'll drag you out ourselves." Evelyn staggered back, her burned legs buckling, but she caught herself against a table, her resolve a steel thread. Miles fanned the flames, his smirk widening as he leaned over the bar. "She's got a history of this, folks, always stirring trouble. Don't let her fool you." The lie slithered through the crowd, igniting fresh jeers. A man in a bow tie tossing a half-eaten pastry that struck her shoulder. A few passengers hesitated, their faces flickering with doubt. Jamal pushed through from the rear door, his hoodie soaked with sweat, his phone held high. "She's telling the truth. I got it all on video," he yelled, shoving past a woman in a mink coat. Lila, the woman in the red scarf from the rear car, joined him, her voice sharp. "They burned her, locked her up. You're the fools." The trucker in the faded hat lumbered forward, his bulk a shield as he growled, "Back off her." Their defense pierced the chaos, a thin lifeline, and Evelyn seized it, straightening despite the pain. "You want the truth?" she shouted, her voice cutting through like a whip. "Miles slapped me, burned me, locked me in a closet. You cheered me then. What changed?" The room faltered, the chant stuttering as a few passengers lowered their hands, uncertainty rippling through. Miles's face twisted, his blue eyes darting to the crowd, but he doubled down, his voice oily. "She's manipulating you. That kid's in on it." The accusation reignited the mob, a woman in gold earrings hurling a wine glass that shattered at Evelyn's feet, shards nicking her ankle. She winced, blood trickling down her shoe, but she held her ground, her gaze locking onto the passengers. "You saw me fight. You saw me win. Now you're his puppets?" The question hung, a challenge, and the room teetered. Her phone buzzed in her purse, Victor's text flashing. 5 minutes out. Hold on." The train stood still, its emergency. "Stop a silent ally," and Evelyn drew strength from it. She pointed at Miles, her voice a thunderclap. "You're the fraud, and you'll pay." The dining car quaked, the mob's roar softening as her words sank in. The man in the velvet blazer dropped a roll, his face flushing with shame. The woman in pearls hesitated, her hand hovering over a plate. Evelyn's allies, Jamal, Lila the trucker, closed ranks around her, their voices rising. "She's right," Jamal shouted, waving his phone. "Check the video." The crowd's fury wavered, eyes flicking to Miles, who shrank behind the bar, his smirk faltering. Evelyn's chest heaved, her burns and cuts a throbbing chorus, but she felt the shift. She'd shamed them, turned their rage back on itself, and Victor was moments away. The chandeliers gleamed, the train's stillness a held breath, and she stood taller, her dignity a battered but unbroken flame. Then Harold Tate's voice boomed over the intercom again, cold and commanding. "Security to the dining car. We've got a riot incited by Evelyn Carter. Remove her immediately." The words sliced through her triumph, a fresh blade in her back. The passengers gasped, the mob's hesitation snapping into action as two burly guards in gray uniforms burst through the rear door. Their boots thudded against the hardwood, their faces blank masks of duty. "That's her," Miles called, pointing from the bar, his smirk reborn. The guards advanced, their hands outstretched, ignoring Jamal's protests. "She didn't start this," he yelled, but they shoved him aside, his phone clattering to the floor. Lila grabbed Evelyn's arm, her voice urgent. "They're framing. You?" The trucker swung a fist, but a guard dodged, slamming him against a table. Evelyn's heart raced. Her victory, the crowd's pause, Victor's nearness, slipping away. "I'm not the rioter," she shouted, but the guards seized her, their grips iron on her wrists. The mob cheered anew, the woman in crimson clapping, the man in gray bellowing, Take her out." Evelyn twisted, her burns flaring as she fought, but the guards dragged her toward the rear exit, the dining car's golden light fading behind her. Her phone buzzed again, Victor's voice breaking through as it fell from her purse unanswered. "Evelyn, I'm here." The call cut off, the device skidding across the floor, and she glimpsed Jamal diving for it, his face fierce. The guards hauled her through the narrow hall, the train's stillness mocking her struggle, the planes outside a dark void. The rear exit loomed, a steel door to the tracks, and Evelyn's mind spun. Victor was minutes away. He'd stop this. She'd turn the mob, silence their chants, only for Harold to twist it into a lie. The guards tightened their hold, their breath hot against her neck. "You've caused enough trouble," one growled, his voice a low rasp. The other smirked, his eyes glinting with malice. "Let's make this quick." The train's brakes hissed, the stop complete, and Evelyn felt a flicker of hope. Victor's boots would hit the platform soon. But then the guards tripped, their hands shoving her hard as the door swung open. She stumbled, her burned legs giving out, and, pitched forward onto the tracks, the gravel biting into her palms as she landed. Pain exploded through her knees, her wrists, her body crumpling against the cold steel rails. The door slammed shut above, the guards' laughter echoing as they retreated. Evelyn lay there, the Midwest night swallowing her, the train a looming shadow against the starry sky. Her blouse tore at the elbow, blood seeping from scrapes, her slacks shredded at the knees. The mob's cheers faded, replaced by the wind's howl across the plains, chilling her sweat-soaked skin. She'd rallied. The dining car shamed Miles felt Victor's rescue closing in, only for this brutal expulsion to strike. Her phone was gone, lost in the chaos, and she was alone, stranded, the gravel digging into her flesh. The train stood silent, its lights a distant glow, the passengers' faces pressed to the windows, some wide-eyed, others smirking. Evelyn pushed herself up, her hands trembling, her burns a roaring fire. She'd escaped the closet, faced the mob, and still they'd thrown her out like trash. Harold's voice, Miles's lies, they'd turned her fight into a crime, her blackness a threat they'd never forgive. Blood trickled down her shin, her breath ragged, but her mind sharpened. Victor was out there, his fury a storm she'd unleash. She staggered to her feet, the tracks stretching into the dark, and vowed they'd regret this. The night pressed in, but she wouldn't break. Not yet. Hey folks, what's your take on this madness? Comment number 1 if you're stunned Evelyn's allies couldn't stop the mob. Number 2 if you think Miles deserves a reckoning. If her unbreakable spirit has you hooked, smash that like button and subscribe for more jaw-dropping twists. She's down. But is she out? How far will they go to crush her now that she's off the train? Evelyn Carter sprawled on the gravel-strewn tracks beside the silver horizon, the Midwest night wrapping her 68-year-old frame in a cold, relentless grip. The train loomed above, its steel hull a dark monolith against the starry sky, its windows glowing with the faint silhouettes of passengers peering down. Her emerald blouse hung in tatters at the elbow, blood seeping from fresh scrapes, her cream slacks shredded at the knees where sharp stones had bitten deep. The burns on her thighs throbbed, a fiery pulse beneath the coffee-stained fabric, and her silver-streaked chignon had unraveled, hair clinging to her sweat-drenched face. Pain radiated from her wrists, her palms raw from breaking her fall, but her brown eyes burned with a fury that outshone the stars. The guards' laughter still echoed in her ears, their shove a brutal punctuation to the mob's betrayal. The wind howled across the desolate plains, whipping grit into her cuts, chilling her sweat-soaked skin. She pushed herself up, gravel crunching under her hands, her knees trembling but holding. The train stood still, its emergency stop a hollow. Victory, the hum of its engines replaced by the night's eerie silence. Her phone was gone, lost in the dining car's chaos, but Victor's last words, "I'm here," looped in her mind. He was close, his power, her lifeline. She staggered to her feet, her torn slacks catching on a jagged rock, and scanned the darkness. A flicker of light bobbed in the distance, a freight worker's lantern, swaying as he trudged along a parallel track. Evelyn waved, her arm aching, her voice hoarse. "Help! Over here!" The light paused, then swung toward her, the worker's boots crunching as he approached. He was a wiry man in his 50s, his denim overalls patched, his face weathered, under a frayed cap. "Lady, what the hell happened?" he asked, his voice rough but laced with concern. Evelyn steadied herself, her breath ragged. "They threw me off the train. I need a radio. My husband's coming." The worker's eyes widened, flicking to the silver horizon's gleaming cars. "Threw you? Jesus. Hang on." He unclipped a battered radio from his belt, static crackling as he spoke. "Base, got a woman off the horizon, says she was dumped. Send help, mile marker 37. The reply buzzed back, curt but clear. "On it. 10 minutes. He handed her a water bottle from his pack, his gaze softening. "You're a mess. Sit tight." Evelyn took the bottle, her hand shaking as she sipped, the cool liquid soothing her parched throat. She sank onto a rail, the steel cold against her burns, her mind racing. The mob's chants, Miles's lies, Harold's, orders. They'd escalated from slaps to this, a near murderous expulsion. But the worker's radio call was a thread of hope, a signal Victor could trace. Headlights pierced the darkness, a sleek black SUV roaring down a dirt road beside the tracks. The vehicle screeched to a halt, dust swirling, and Victor Carter leapt out, his 6-foot frame clad in a tailored charcoal suit, his dark skin gleaming under the starlight. A wiry woman in a pinstripe blazer followed, his lawyer Marla Kent, her sharp eyes scanning the scene. "Evelyn!" Victor's voice boomed, his strides eating the distance as he reached her. He pulled her into his arms, his grip fierce, his breath hot against her hair. "They're dead for this. All of them." She clung to him, her torn blouse pressing against his chest, relief flooding her despite the pain. "They locked me up, threw me out," she said, her voice steadying. "Miles, Harold, they're framing me." Victor's jaw clenched, his eyes black with rage. "I've got the board on speed dial. They'll sue this line into the ground." Marla stepped forward, her tablet glowing as she typed. "Assault, false imprisonment, defamation. I'm drafting it now. We'll bury them." Evelyn nodded, her burns a dull roar, Victor's power a shield she'd wield. The train's rear door creaked open, Harold Tate's hulking figure descending, his black suit pristine despite the chaos. He approached, his hands raised in mock surrender, his voice oily. "Mr. Carter, let's not overreact. Mrs. Carter caused a riot. Security acted in good faith. We'll compensate her $2,000 and call it square." Victor's laugh was a low growl, his arm tightening around Evelyn. "You think $2,000 fixes this? You're fired, Tate. And your little steward, too." Harold's smirk faltered, his dark eyes flicking to Marla's tablet. "I'll make it right," he stammered, backing toward the train. "She can come back aboard. No charge." Evelyn felt justice closing in. Victor's fury a tidal wave, Harold's groveling, a sweet note in her ears. The freight worker watched, his lantern casting long shadows, the plane stretching endlessly around them. Evelyn stood taller, her torn clothes a testament to her fight, Victor's presence a promise of reckoning. She'd been slapped, burned, locked up, pelted and thrown out, but now the tide was turning. Harold climbed back aboard, his retreat a victory, and Victor guided her toward the SUV, Marla trailing with her legal arsenal. "We're ending this," he said, his voice iron. Evelyn nodded, her burns and cuts a throbbing chorus, but her spirit soared. They'd pay, every last one of them. The train's lights flickered, passengers still gawking, and she felt the weight lifting, the board's wrath imminent. Then her ears caught a faint buzz, a phone ringing, not hers, but close. The freight worker pulled a device from his pack, frowning as he answered. "Yeah, what?" His face paled, his eyes darting to Evelyn. "You're kidding. Online?" He hung up, turning to her, his voice tight. "Some steward. Miles. Just posted a video. Says you attacked the guards. It's doctored, but it's everywhere. 50,000 views already." Evelyn's stomach dropped, her triumph curdling into dread. Victor spun, his fists clenching. What? Marla tapped her tablet, her face grim. He's right. It's trending. Carter criminal. Death threats, too. The screen glowed with hate. She's a thug. Jail her. Worse than we thought. Evelyn's knees buckled, Victor catching her as she swayed. The plane spun, the stars blurring, the wind a cold slap against her cuts. She'd flagged the worker, summoned Victor, forced Harold's groveling, only for Miles to strike back with this venomous lie. The video looped on Marla's tablet, a grainy cut showing her lunging at the guards, her fall edited out, her defiance twisted into violence. "That's not me," she whispered, her voice breaking. Victor's rage flared, his arm a steel band around her. "They're framing you again. We'll sue for libel. Shut it down." But the buzz grew, her phone lost, the hate campaign exploding beyond the tracks. Passengers leaned from the train's windows, some pointing, others filming, their faces a mix of shock and glee. The freight worker shifted, his lantern dimming, his voice low. "Folks are crazy online, saying you're a danger to everyone." Evelyn's burns flared, her scrapes stinging, but this cut deeper. She'd risen from the tracks, felt Victor's power turn the tables, only for Miles's doctored footage to paint her as a criminal. Harold's compensation offer, his retreat, it was a feint, a setup for this. The death threat scrolled on Marla's screen. "Get her off the streets. She'll pay in blood," each one a dagger in her chest. Victor pulled her toward the SUV, his voice a growl. "We're boarding that train. They won't hide from this." Marla nodded, her fingers flying. "I'll get an injunction. This ends now." The train's horn blared, a hollow warning. As they climbed aboard, the rear car's dim light swallowing them. Evelyn's torn slacks dragged against the floor, her blood leaving faint smears, but her resolve hardened. She'd survived the mob, the fall, and now this smear would fuel her fight. Victor's hand gripped hers, Marla's tablet a weapon, the planes fading behind them. The passengers' stares followed, some whispering, others sneering, the hate campaign's echo rippling through. She'd thought Victor's arrival, Harold's groveling, would end it, but Miles had turned the world against her. The trains, wheels creaked, ready to roll, and she knew the battle was escalating, the stakes higher than ever. They'd pay, but how many more blows could she take? Evelyn Carter sat in a private compartment aboard the Silver Horizon, the train's wheels creaking as it rolled back into motion, slicing through the Midwest night. The compartment was a stark upgrade from the rear car, a narrow bed with crisp, white sheets, a small oak table, a window framing the endless plains, but it felt like a gilded cage. Her 68-year-old frame slumped against the wall, her emerald blouse torn and wine-stained, her cream slacks shredded at the knees, the burns on her thighs a relentless throb beneath the fabric. Blood crusted her scrapes, her silver streaked, hair falling loose around her sweat-slicked face, but her brown eyes glinted with a fierce resolve. Victor paced the tight space, his charcoal suit wrinkled, his 6-foot frame radiating fury. Marla Kent sat across from Evelyn, her pinstripe blazer crisp, her tablet glowing with the hate campaign's venom. 50,000 views now, climbing fast. The air hummed with tension, the compartment's wood-paneled walls muffling the train's rumble, but not the weight of the online storm. Victor's voice growled low, his fists clenched. "Miles doctored that video, turned you into a monster. I'm shutting this down, board suspending him tonight." Evelyn nodded, her throat dry, her lost phone a ghost in her mind. "There, calling me a thug, Victor. Death threats, too." Marla tapped her screen, her sharp eyes narrowing. "It's worse. Carter criminals trending nationwide. Miles posted a petition. Ban her kind from Silver Horizon. 10,000 signatures already." Evelyn's stomach twisted, the words a fresh wound atop her burns. She'd been slapped, burned, locked up, pelted, thrown onto the tracks, and now this, a digital lynch mob fueled by lies. Victor slammed a fist against the table, the oak shuddering. "Her kind? That's racism, plain and raw. We're suing for defamation, libel, everything. Marla, get it filed." Marla's fingers flew, her voice calm but steely. "Drafts ready. Assault, false imprisonment, now this. We'll bury them in court." Evelyn drew a shaky breath, her cuts stinging as she shifted. "They won't stop, Victor," Harold offered. "He money. Then this hit. It's coordinated." Victor's eyes darkened, his jaw tight. "Harold's next. I'll have his badge by morning." The train rocked, the planes a blur outside, stars fading into the black. Evelyn's mind churned. Miles's smirk, the mob's food, the guard's shove, all leading to this virtual guillotine. But she had Victor, Marla, and the truth. She'd fight back. Marla handed her a spare phone, its screen cold in her palm. "Use this. We're going live. Tell your side." Evelyn hesitated, her torn blouse a map of her ordeal, but nodded. She opened the app, the camera framing her battered face, and hit record. "I'm Evelyn Carter," she began, her voice steady despite the pain. "Miles Grayson slapped me, burned me with coffee, locked me in a closet. The mob attacked me. Guards threw me off this train. That video's a lie. I didn't attack anyone. This is what they do when you fight back." She held up her scraped hands, her stained slacks, her voice rising. "I won't be silenced. Share this. Stop them." She ended the stream, her chest heaving, and Marla uploaded it, her eyes glinting. "That'll hit hard." The train rattled on, the compartment's dim light flickering, and Evelyn's words exploded online. Views climbed, 5,000, 10,000, 20,000, comments flooding in. "She's a hero. Miles is trash. Justice. Now!" Support surged, a counterwave to the hate, and Evelyn felt a spark of power. Victor grinned, his hand squeezing hers. "That's my girl. They can't bury this." Marla's tablet pinged, her face lighting up. Boards suspending Miles, effective immediately. Harold's under review too. Evelyn's burns ached, her scrapes a dull sting, but the news lifted her. She'd gone live, turned the narrative, and the train line was cracking under her. Truth. The compartment felt less like a cage, her allies' strength a bulwark against the storm. The planes stretched beyond the window, a dark sea under the night sky, the train's rhythm a steady pulse. Evelyn leaned back, her torn clothes a testament to her fight, her spirit clawing up from the tracks. She'd faced the mob, survived the fall, and now her voice was shaking the world. Victor sat beside her, his presence a rock, while Marla tracked the backlash, her tablet a lifeline. "Public's flipping," Marla said, scrolling. "Petitions stalling. People are waking up." Evelyn's lips curved, a faint smile breaking through. She'd thought the hate would drown her, but this was her comeback. Miles was suspended, Harold teetering, and the train line's facade was crumbling. She'd won this round, reclaimed her story. Then the compartment door burst. Open, a masked figure lunging inside, a flash of steel in his hand. Evelyn's breath caught, her body jolting upright as the man, broad-shouldered, his face hidden by a black ski mask, slashed a knife toward her. The blade caught her arm, slicing through her blouse, blood welling hot and fast. She screamed, the pain a white-hot shock, her burned legs kicking as she fell back. "Die, you bitch!" the man roared, his voice thick with slurs, his eyes wild through the mask's slits. Victor lunged, tackling him, the table crashing as they hit the floor. Marla grabbed a lamp, smashing it against the attacker's head, glass shattering in, a spray of sparks. The man grunted, the knife clattering away, and Victor pinned him, his knee grinding into his back. Evelyn clutched her arm, blood dripping between her fingers, her vision swimming. The compartment spun, the oak walls a blur, the train's rumble a distant roar. Victor's voice cut through, fierce and commanding. "Who sent you?" The attacker thrashed, his muffled curses laced with hate, but Victor's grip held, his suit tearing at the shoulder. Marla snatched the knife, her hand steady, and dialed security on her phone. "Intruder in compartment 12. Now." Evelyn's heart hammered, her burns and scrapes dwarfed by this new wound, the blood pooling. On the sheets, she'd gone live, rallied the world, felt the tide turn, only for this brutal assault to strike, a blade aimed at her life. The train jolted, the planes outside a void, the compartment a battlefield. Security burst in, 2 guards in gray uniforms, not the ones who'd thrown her, cuffing the attacker, dragging him out. His mask slipped, revealing a pockmarked face, his eyes still spitting venom as he snarled, "You don't belong!" Victor stood, his chest heaving, blood on his knuckles, from the fight. "Get him off my train," he growled, the guards nodding as they hauled the man away. Marla pressed a towel to Evelyn's arm, her voice tight. "You're okay. Just a flesh wound. We'll get you stitched." Evelyn nodded, her breath ragged, the pain a searing pulse, but her mind raced. This wasn't random. Someone sent him. The compartment settled, the bed stained red, the lamp's shards glinting on the floor. Evelyn's live stream had hit 50,000 views. Miles was suspended, Harold on the ropes. Yet this attack proved they wouldn't stop. Victor knelt, beside her, his hand gentle on her shoulder. "We're ending this, Evelyn. No more." Marla's tablet glowed, her fingers tapping. "Police are on it. Assault with a deadly weapon. He's linked to Miles, I bet." Evelyn's arm throbbed, her torn blouse a crimson flag, but her resolve hardened. She'd survived the tracks, the hate, and now a knife. The planes rolled by, the night endless, and she knew the fight was deepening, the stakes bloodier than ever. They'd slashed her, but she'd rise again. Stronger, fiercer, unbroken. Evelyn Carter lay on the narrow bed in the Silver Horizons medical bay, the train's gentle sway a cruel counterpoint to the chaos pulsing through her 68-year-old frame. The bay was a sterile box, white walls, a steel sink, a single, overhead light casting harsh shadows across the tiled floor. Her emerald blouse hung in bloody tatters, the knife's slash a jagged red line across her arm, now stitched with black thread that pulled tight against her dark skin. Her cream slacks clung to her thighs, the coffee burns a dull ache beneath fresh bandages, her knees scraped raw from the tracks. Her silver-streaked hair spilled loose, framing a face etched with pain and fury. But her brown eyes glowed with an unyielding fire. Blood stained the sheets, her breath shallow as the antiseptic sting lingered in the air. Victor Carter stood beside her, his charcoal suit torn at the shoulder, his knuckles bruised from pinning the masked attacker. His 6-foot frame loomed over the bed, his voice a low growl. "They'll pay in blood for this, Evelyn. I'm calling the cops, the board, everyone." Marla Kent hovered near the sink, her pinstripe blazer rumpled, her tablet glowing with updates as she dialed security again. "Police are boarding at the next stop," she said, her sharp eyes flicking to Evelyn. "That bastard's in custody. Local thug, known for hate crimes. Ties to Miles. I'd bet my license." Evelyn nodded, her stitched arm throbbing, her mind sharpening despite the haze. "He screamed slurs. This wasn't random. They want me dead." The bay's door swung open, a medic in a white coat rushing in, his young face pale as he checked her vitals. "You're stable, ma'am, but that cuts deep. Needs a hospital soon." Evelyn waved him off, her voice hoarse but firm. "I'll live. Get out." He hesitated, then scurried away, the door clicking shut. Victor knelt, his hand gentle on her uninjured arm. "We've got him, Evelyn. He's not walking free." Marla's tablet pinged, her voice rising. "Passengers are rallying. Your live stream hit 100,000 views. They're demanding justice." Evelyn's lips twitched, a spark of triumph cutting through the pain. She'd survived the knife, her voice had roared online, and now the world was pushing back. The train rattled, the planes outside a dark blur, the bay's light flickering as Victor dialed the police. "Yeah, Victor Carter here. My wife was attacked. Knife to the arm. Suspects in custody. Get here fast." The line crackled, a gruff voice replying, "5 minutes out, sir. We're on it." He hung up, his eyes meeting Evelyn's. "They'll lock him up. Miles too, once we prove the link." Marla scrolled, her face lighting up. Board scrambling. Harold's begging to keep his job, but passengers are flooding the line with complaints. "They're behind you, Evelyn." The medic's kit lay open, gauze and tape scattered, and Evelyn pushed herself up, her stitched arm a searing protest. "Good. Let them squirm." Footsteps thudded outside, the door banging open as 2 cops in blue uniforms stormed in, dragging the attacker. His mask gone, his pockmarked face bruised from Victor's fists. His wrists were cuffed, his hate-filled eyes locking onto Evelyn. "You're filth," he spat, his voice a snarl as the cops yanked him back. "Found him in the baggage car," one said, his badge glinting. "Name's Roy Decker. Record a mile long. Assault, vandalism, all tied to hate groups." Victor stepped forward, his voice ice. "He slashed my wife. Lock him up for life." The cops nodded, hauling Roy out, his curses fading down the hall. Evelyn's chest swelled. The arrest a bloody retribution. The train's crew scurrying, in panic. The bay hummed with tension, the sink dripping a steady beat, the train's wheels grinding against the tracks. Evelyn's live stream had flipped the script, passengers rallying online and aboard, their voices a chorus of outrage. "She's a fighter! Jail the steward!" The board's apologies trickled in, heralds groveling a faint echo through. Marla's updates. "They're offering 10,000 now," she said, her tone dry. Too late. Evelyn's burns ached, her stitches pulling, but she felt the tide turning. Roy's arrest, Miles's suspension, Harold's desperation. It was justice, raw and real. She'd survived the tracks, the hate storm, the knife, and now the world was her weapon. The plane stretched beyond the window, a dark sea under the stars, and she knew she'd won this round. Then Miles Grayson burst in, his Navy uniform wrinkled, his blue eyes wild with defiance. "This is a setup," he shouted, his voice cracking as he pointed at Evelyn. "She staged that attack. Cut herself for sympathy." The room froze, Victor's fists clenching, Marla's tablet dropping to the bed. Evelyn's breath caught, her stitched arm a throbbing proof of his lie, but Miles pressed on, his smirk twisting. "I've got witnesses. 3 passengers saw her grab the knife. She's a con!" 2 men and a woman in first-class attire slipped in behind him, their faces smug. "He's right," the woman in a teal scarf said, her voice prim. "She faked it." The man in a tweed vest nodded. "Saw her do it myself." Evelyn's heart sank, her triumph shattering as Miles's lies took root. "That's insane," she rasped, her voice raw. "He slashed me. You saw the blood." Victor lunged, his hand grabbing Miles's collar, but the cops stormed back in, pulling him off. "Enough!" one barked, his hand on his holster. "We've got a problem. Witnesses corroborate his story." Marla's eyes widened, her voice sharp. "They're lying, check the footage," but the cops hesitated, their faces hardening. "Video's inconclusive, too shaky. Mrs. Carter, you're under suspicion now." Evelyn's world tilted, her burns and cuts a cruel irony as handcuffs clicked around her wrists, the cold steel biting into her skin. The bay spun, the white walls closing in, the sink's drip a mocking pulse. Victor roared, "This is bullshit. She's the victim." But the cops held firm, their voices flat. "Procedure, sir. She's detained until we sort this." Marla snatched her tablet, her fingers flying. "I'll get Jamal's footage, it'll prove it." The passengers, rally, Roy's arrest, the board's panic. It all crumbled under Miles's vicious counterstrike. Evelyn's live stream had hit 100,000. Her fight had toppled giants, only for this fabricated tale to chain her. The cops dragged her from the bed, her torn slacks catching on the frame, blood seeping through her bandages as they hauled her out. The train's hall blurred past, passengers gaping from doorways, their phones out, filming her fall. "She's innocent," a woman in a plaid shirt shouted, but the cops pressed on, their grips bruising. Evelyn's stitched arm screamed, her burns afire, but her mind raced. Miles's witnesses, paid, coerced, or just hateful, had flipped her victory into a nightmare. The planes rolled by, the night endless, the train a prison once more. She'd survived the knife, felt justice close, only for this lie to bury her. Victor's voice echoed behind. "I'll fix this." But the cops slammed a holding cell door, the clang a death knell. Alone, cuffed, bleeding, she vowed they'd regret. This, her fight wasn't over. Hey folks, what's your gut on this twist? Comment number 1 if you're raging at Miles's dirty play. Number 2 if you believe Evelyn's unbreakable spirit will rise again. If this roller coaster of betrayal has you gripped, hit that like button and subscribe for more heart-pounding justice. She's down, bleeding, and cuffed. But can they really keep her locked up with the truth out there? What's Miles's next trick to keep her silenced? Evelyn Carter sat in a makeshift holding cell aboard the Silver Horizon, the train's slow roll a mocking rhythm beneath her 68-year-old frame. The cell was a converted storage nook, cold steel walls, a single bench bolted to the floor, a barred window letting in slivers of Midwest night. Her emerald blouse hung in bloody tatters, the knife slash stitched but seeping through her bandages, her cream slacks torn and stained with coffee and gravel dust. Her silver-streaked hair fell in wild strands across her sweat-slicked face, her wrists chafed raw by handcuffs, but her brown eyes burned with a defiance that no lock could quench. The air smelled of rust and despair, the faint hum of the train's engines a dull pulse against the silence. Her arm throbbed, the stitches pulling with every breath, her burns a relentless fire beneath her slacks. She'd been slapped, burned, locked up, pelted, thrown onto tracks, slashed with a knife. And now this, cuffed and caged on Miles Grayson's fabricated lie. The cops' voices echoed from the hall, their words a grim mantra. Witnesses say she staged it. Evelyn's jaw clenched, her mind replaying Miles's smirk, his 3 passengers' smug faces, teal scarf, tweed vest, a third in a silk tie, swearing she'd cut herself. The door creaked, one cop stepping in, his blue uniform crisp, his face a mask of indifference. "Mrs. Carter, you're detained for assault and deception. Evidence backs it up." She glared, her voice hoarse but sharp. "Evidence? That's a lie and you know it." The cop shrugged, his badge glinting under the dim bulb. 3 witnesses, 1 video. You're staying put." Evelyn's chest tightened, her burns flaring as she shifted, the cuffs biting deeper. "I was attacked. Roy Decker slashed me. You've got him." The cop's eyes flicked away, his voice flat. "His story matches Miles's, says you provoked him. We're sorting it." He turned, the door clanging shut, leaving her alone. With the steel and the night. Her live stream had hit 100,000 views. Passengers had rallied. Roy was cuffed. Yet Miles's poison had turned it all against her. She banged the cuffs against the bench, the clang a futile protest, her mind racing for a way out. The train rocked, the planes a blur beyond the bars, stars winking like distant taunts. Footsteps thudded outside, Victor Carter's voice booming through the wall. "Let me see her now." The door swung open, Victor storming in, his charcoal suit torn, his 6-foot frame filling the cell. Marla Kent followed, her pinstripe blazer, askew, her tablet clutched tight. "Evelyn," Victor said, his hands gripping the bars, his dark eyes blazing. "I've got lawyers, top tier. They're on a jet, here by dawn." She nodded, her stitched arm a dull roar, her voice steadying. "Miles framed me. Those witnesses are his puppets." Marla tapped her screen, her voice sharp. "We're digging. Jamal's got more footage. It'll blow this apart." Victor's fists tightened, his knuckles still bruised from Roy. "I'm tearing this train line down. Cops, board, all of them." The cop re-entered, his face sour. "Back off, Mr. Carter. She's detained." "Legal process." Victor spun, his growl low. "Legal? You're cuffing a victim on lies." The cop stood firm, his hand hovering near his holster, but Marla stepped in, her tone icy. "We've got evidence coming. You'll regret this." The cop grunted, retreating, the door slamming again. Evelyn's burns ached, her scrape stinging, but Victor's fury, Marla's resolve, they were her anchors. She'd survived the knife, turned the world to her side, only for this cell to trap her. But help was coming. The train's hum deepened, the planes stretching into the dark, the cell's steel a cold embrace. Marla sat beside her, the bench, creaking, her tablet glowing with Jamal's latest message. "Got the dining car footage, clear shot of Roy's attack, sending now." She played it, the shaky video showing Roy's masked lunge, the knife's flash, Victor's tackle. No sign of Evelyn staging anything. "This clears you," Marla said, uploading it to the lawyers. "Police'll have to back off." Evelyn's chest loosened, her cuffs a temporary weight. The live stream, Roy's arrest. Now this. Truth was breaking through. She'd been cuffed on a lie, but Jamal's lens was her sword, slashing Miles's tail apart. Minutes ticked by, the cell's bulb flickering, the train's sway a steady pulse. The door banged open again, a second cop entering, his face less hard than the first. "New evidence," he said, unlocking her cuffs, his voice gruff. "Video checks out. You're free. Grayson's detained instead." Evelyn's wrist sprang loose, the steel clattering to the floor, her arms trembling as she rubbed the chafed skin. Victor pulled her up, his grip fierce, his voice a roar. "About damn time." Marla smirked, her tablet pinging with updates. Miles is in the baggage car cuffed, boards suspending him permanently. Evelyn stood, her torn slacks dragging, her bloodied blouse a banner of her fight. She'd won. Again, the lie shattered, the cell undone. The train slowed, its brakes whining, the planes outside a shadowed expanse. Evelyn stepped into the hall, her burns and cuts a throbbing chorus, but her spirit soared. Passengers peered from compartments, their faces a mix of shock and awe, some filming, others whispering. "She's out!" A woman in a denim jacket called, her voice bright. "They framed her!" A man in a baseball cap growled, his fist raised. The tide had turned, Jamal's footage a beacon, Victor's lawyers a storm on the horizon. She'd survived the tracks, the knife, the hate storm, and now this false arrest. Each blow harder, each victory sweeter. Miles was down, Harold reeling, the train line cracking under her truth. Then the train lurched, a grinding screech splitting the air, the lights flickering out. Evelyn stumbled, Victor catching her, Marla's tablet clattering to the floor. The hall plunged into darkness, passengers gasping, the train shuddering to a halt. A voice crackled over the intercom, Harold Tate's tone smug despite the chaos. "Mechanical failure, folks. We're stuck. Nearest town's rural. Stay calm." Evelyn's heart sank, her triumph curdling as shouts echoed from outside. Victor peered through a window, his face hardening. Lights out there, torches, people. Marla snatched her tablet, its glow faint, her voice tight. "Social media's exploding. Miles's petition leaked our stop. It's a mob." The train's silence was deafening, the planes a black void pierced by flickering flames. Evelyn staggered to the window, her stitched arm screaming, her burns a dull roar. A crowd surged toward the tracks, dozens, maybe 50, torches waving, voices howling slurs and threats. "Get her out. Carter's a liar." Their faces twisted in the firelight, a rural hate mob summoned by Miles's lies, Harold's betrayal. Rocks thudded against the train, glass shattering somewhere down the hall, passengers screaming. Evelyn's breath caught, her freedom a fleeting gasp before this new hell. She'd broken the cuffs, cleared her name, only for this siege. To trap her, the train a stranded fortress. Victor pulled her back, his voice a growl. "They're after you. We're barricading this car." Marla grabbed a chair, jamming it under the door, her hands steady despite the chaos. The mob's chants grew. "Burn it down. Teach her a lesson." Their torches a ring of fire closing in. Evelyn's torn slacks snagged on the bench, her blood staining the floor. But her mind raced. Jamal's footage had freed her. Victor's power had crushed Miles, yet Harold had sold her out, tipping off this pack of wolves. The train shook, a rock smashing the window, shards raining down, and she knew this was no accident. They'd framed her, freed her, only to deliver her to this deadly trap. Evelyn Carter crouched behind a shattered ticket counter in the Silver Horizon's rundown station, the Midwest night pressing against the cracked windows like a living shadow. The station was a crumbling relic, peeling paint, splintered wooden benches, a flickering neon sign buzzing faintly over the door. Her 68-year-old frame ached, her emerald blouse a bloody rag, the knife's slash stitched but oozing through bandages, her cream slacks torn and crusted with gravel and blood. Her silver-streaked hair clung to her sweat-drenched face, her burns throbbing beneath the fabric, but her brown eyes gleamed with a fierce will to survive. Victor Carter knelt beside her, his charcoal suit ripped, his 6-foot frame coiled tight, a broken chair leg clutched as a weapon. Marla Kent braced a metal bar against the door, her pinstripe blazer stained, her sharp eyes darting to the chaos outside. The train loomed just beyond the platform, its lights dead, its steel hull a stranded giant under the starry sky. The mob, 50, strong, maybe more, swarmed the tracks, their torches casting jagged flames across the plains, their voices a howling chorus of hate. "Get the Carters! Burn 'em out!" Rocks smashed through windows, glass raining onto the tiled floor, the air thick with dust and the acrid tang of smoke. Evelyn's stitched arm pulsed, her scrape stinging as she pressed against the counter, her breath shallow. She'd escaped the train's holding cell, cleared her name with Jamal's footage, only for Harold Tate's betrayal to strand them here, delivering her to this rural nightmare. The mob's slurs cut deeper than the knife. "She don't belong! Teach her a lesson!" Each word a fresh wound. Victor peeked over the counter, his voice a low growl. "They're closing in, 20 yards out. We hold this spot." Marla nodded, her tablet useless without signal, her hands steady on the bar. "Police are 10 minutes away." Victor's call got through. Evelyn gripped a shard of glass from the floor, its edge biting into her palm, her resolve hardening. "They won't wait 10 minutes, we fight." The station shook, a brick crashing through the neon sign, sparks spitting as it died. The mob surged closer, their torches a ring of fire, their faces twisted. Men in flannel, women in faded dresses, all united by rage, stoked by Miles's lies. She'd survived the tracks, the knife, the false arrest. But this was a new beast, a horde bent on her blood. Footsteps pounded outside, a familiar sneer cutting through the din. "She's in there!" Miles Grayson shouted, his navy uniform tattered, his blue eyes glinting in the torchlight. He'd slipped his cuffs, freed by some unseen hand, and now led the charge, his smirk a venomous promise. "Finish what we started," the mob roared, a Molotov cocktail sailing through a broken window, exploding against a bench in a burst of flame. Heat washed over Evelyn, her burns screaming as she ducked, embers singeing her slacks. Victor swung the chair leg, smashing a second bottle midair, glass and fire raining onto the tiles. "Stay down," he barked, his voice a lifeline in the chaos. Evelyn's mind raced, her stitched arm trembling as she clutched the glass shard. She'd rallied the world, toppled Miles once, only for him to rise like a hydra, this mob his new weapon. Marla yanked a fire extinguisher from the wall, spraying foam at the flames, her voice sharp. "We've got to hold them off." The station's walls groaned, smoke curling through the air, the mob's chants a relentless drumbeat. Evelyn staggered, up, her torn clothes a banner of her fight, and grabbed Marla's spare phone from her pocket. "Going live," she rasped, hitting record, the camera framing her bloodied face against the firelight. "This is Evelyn Carter. Miles Grayson's mob is burning us out. Help us. Share this now." The stream went up, her voice a clarion call, the flames crackling behind her. Views climbed, 10,000, 20,000, comments flooding. "Save her. Miles is a monster." The world's eyes turned, a global shaming of the torch-wielding horde, and Evelyn felt a surge of power. Victor smashed another bottle, his suit blackened with soot, his roar defiant. "They're backing off," the mob faltered, some glancing at phones, their fury wavering under the weight of her broadcast. Miles screamed, "Don't stop!" But the ring of fire hesitated, the station's inferno a stark backdrop to her truth. She'd turned their attack into her weapon, the live stream a shield forged in desperation. Sirens wailed in the distance, red and blue lights piercing the plains, the police finally closing in. The mob scattered, torches dropping, some fleeing into the night, others frozen as cop cars screeched onto the scene. Officers leapt out, batons raised, voices barking orders. "Drop your weapons! Hands up!" Miles spun, his smirk vanishing as a cop tackled him, cuffs snapping back on his wrists, his face slamming into the gravel. "You're done, Grayson!" the cop growled, hauling him up, blood trickling from his nose. The flames licked the station's walls, smoke billowing, but the siege broke, the mob's roar fading into whimpers and curses. Evelyn sank against the counter, her stitched arm bleeding anew, her burns a searing chorus, but her live stream had saved them. The station smoldered, its benches charred, its windows gaping holes to the night. Victor pulled her close, his arm a steel band, his voice rough. "You did it, Evelyn. They're gone." Marla dropped the extinguisher, her blazer singed, her eyes bright. Police have Miles, assault, incitement. He's not slipping this. The cops swarmed outside, cuffing stragglers, their radios crackling with updates. Evelyn's phone buzzed. Marla's. Spare. Views hitting 50,000, support surging. Hero. End this hate. She'd shamed the mob, turned their fire into her victory, felt safety creeping back. The plane stretched beyond the wreckage, the stars a faint hope, and she thought it was over, the nightmare lifting. Then Harold Tate emerged from the train, his black suit pristine, his smirk a cold blade in the firelight. He approached a cop, his voice smooth as oil. "I've got info. Carter's location was leaked to a group. White Falcons, they're called. They're not done." Evelyn's blood froze, her triumph curdling as Harold's words sank in. The cop nodded, radioing it in, but Harold's eyes met hers, his glint a promise of worse to come. "You're a magnet for trouble, Mrs. Carter," he said, turning away, his footsteps fading into the chaos. The station trembled, a second Molotov sailing through the air, this one smashing against the counter, flames erupting inches from her feet. She screamed, Victor yanking her back, the heat searing her burns anew. The fire roared. The counter, a blazing wall, smoke choking the air as firefighters rushed in, hoses blasting. Evelyn stumbled, her torn slacks catching on debris, her stitched arm a bloody mess, her vision blurring. The cops shouted, the mob's remnants scattering, but Harold's revelation, the White Falcons, loomed larger than the flames. She'd broadcast the siege, stopped Miles, felt the police close in, only for this firebomb to strike, a brutal echo of his betrayal. Victor shielded her, his suit smoldering, his voice fierce. "We're getting out." Marla grabbed her arm, pulling her toward the door, the extinguisher foam a futile hiss against the inferno. The station burned, the planes a witness, and Evelyn knew the Falcons were coming, their hate a shadow she couldn't outrun. The night swallowed them as they fled, the station a pyre, the train a stranded husk. Evelyn's burns screamed, her. Cuts bled, but her resolve hardened. She'd survived the mob, turned the world's eyes, toppled Miles again, yet Harold's leak unleashed this new terror. Firefighters battled the blaze, cops rounded up stragglers, but the White Falcons' name hung like smoke, a promise of bloodier battles. Victor's grip tightened, Marla's phone glowing with the live stream's reach, and Evelyn staggered forward, her torn clothes a testament to her fight. The plain stretched endless, the stars cold, and she braced for the next blow, her spirit aflame no fire could douse. Evelyn Carter crawled through the blazing wreckage of the Silver Horizon station, the Midwest night a choking shroud of smoke and screams. Flames devoured the ticket counter, licking up the peeling walls, the air thick with the stench of burning wood and gasoline. Her 68-year-old frame trembled, her emerald blouse a bloody, singed rag, the knife slash seeping through stitches, her cream slacks torn and blackened, the burns on her thighs a roaring inferno beneath. The fabric, her silver-streaked hair hung in soot-streaked strands, her face smeared with ash, but her brown eyes cut through the haze, fierce and unyielding. Victor Carter dragged her forward, his charcoal suit smoldering, his 6-foot frame hunched against the heat, his hands raw from shielding her. Marla Kent staggered behind, her pinstripe blazer charred, her sharp eyes watering as she clutched her cracked tablet. The station was a furnace, its splintered benches fuel for the fire, its cracked windows shattering under the blaze's pressure. The second Molotov cocktail, thrown by the unseen White Falcons, had turned their refuge into a D-trap, the flames a wall between them and the door. Evelyn's stitched arm bled, her scrapes stinging with every inch she clawed across the tiled floor, embers raining onto her back. "Move!" Victor roared, his voice a beacon through the crackling chaos, his arm hooking under hers as he pulled her toward a side exit. The planes loomed beyond, a dark promise of air, but the fire surged, a beam crashing down, blocking their path with a shower of sparks. Evelyn coughed, her lungs burning, her torn slacks snagging on a jagged nail as she twisted free. She'd broadcast the siege, shamed Miles's mob, felt the police close in, only for Harold Tate's leak to unleash this hell. The White Falcons, a name whispered in terror, had struck, their firebomb a brutal vow to finish her. Victor kicked at the debris, his suit tearing further, his breath ragged. "Over here!" he shouted, spotting a gap near a shattered window, its frame warped by heat. Marla stumbled forward, her tablet slipping, its screen glowing with the live stream's last frame. 50,000 views frozen in time. "Go!" she rasped, shoving Evelyn toward the opening. The station groaned, its roof sagging, the flames a roaring beast at their heels. Evelyn crawled, her stitched arms screaming, her burns a white-hot agony as she squeezed through the gap, glass cutting fresh lines into her palms. Victor pushed from behind, his strength a lifeline, his hands bleeding as he forced the frame wider. She tumbled out, landing on the gravel-strewn platform, the cool night air a shock against her scorched skin. Victor followed, pulling Marla through, her blazer ripping as she hit the ground. The station blazed behind them, a pyre of hate, the fire's roar drowning the distant wail of sirens. Evelyn staggered up, her torn clothes smoldering, her body a map of pain, but alive. The plane stretched around them, a black expanse under the starry sky. The train a silent husk on the tracks. Firefighters swarmed from trucks, hoses blasting, their shouts a faint echo as they battled the inferno. Cops rounded up stragglers from Miles's mob, their cuffs glinting in the firelight, but the white falcons had melted into the night, their torches gone. Victor pulled Evelyn close, his arm a steel band, his voice rough. "You're safe now. They're done." Marla retrieved her tablet, its cracked screen flickering, her voice steady despite the soot on her face. "Police nabbed. 3 falcons, they think. Miles is still cuffed." Evelyn's chest heaved, her burns and cuts a throbbing chorus, but survival felt like triumph. The flames a testament to her fight. The station's roof collapsed, a thunderous crash sending embers skyward, the firefighters retreating as the blaze won. Evelyn leaned against Victor, her torn slacks dragging, her blood staining the gravel. She'd survived the tracks, the knife, the false arrest, the siege, and now this, crawling from a burning tomb. The world had seen her live stream, rallied to her side, toppled Miles again, and the board was cracking under the pressure. Marla's phone buzzed, her spare, still alive, views hitting 100,000, comments flooding, "She's unbreakable." "End the hate." The train line socials buzzed with apologies, Harold's firing confirmed, Miles's permanent suspension sealed. Evelyn's lips curved, a faint smile breaking through the ash, her story inspiring millions. The plains glowed with the fire's light, the stars a distant hope, the station a smoldering ruin. Victor's hand tightened on hers, his suit a charred relic, his voice fierce. "We're taking this to the top. Board's finished." Marla scrolled, her eyes glinting. Public's demanding a reckoning, Silver Horizon stocks tanking. Evelyn stood taller, her burns a dull roar, her spirit soaring. She'd escaped the flames, turned the world's eyes, felt justice clawing, closer. The firefighters doused the wreckage, cops scoured the tracks, and she thought it was over. The nightmare burned to ash, her fight had toppled giants, her survival a beacon, and the falcon's shadows seemed to fade. Then a cop approached, his blue uniform streaked with soot, his face grim. "Found this in the wreckage," he said, holding a scorched recorder. Its plastic melted but intact. He pressed play, Miles's voice crackling through, smug and clear. "Board paid me to target her. Carter's a threat to their control. Had to make it ugly." The cop's eyes met Evelyn's, his voice low. "This changes everything." Victor's jaw dropped, his fists clenching, his roar splitting the night. "They hired him? The whole damn board?" Marla snatched the recorder, her tablet pinging as she backed it up, her voice sharp. "Conspiracy, top to bottom. We've got them." Evelyn's world spun, the planes blurring, the fire's heat a fading echo against this chilling truth. Her stitched arm bled, her burns flared, but this hit deeper. A corporate plot to crush her. Miles their pawn, the train line rotten to its core. She'd crawled from the flames, felt the world rally, seen Miles and Harold fall, only for this audio to unveil a darker enemy. The station smoked behind them, its ruins a mirror to her ordeal. The firefighter's hoses, a futile hiss against. The revelation. Victor pulled her toward the cops, his voice iron. "We're ending this, all of them." Marla's fingers flew, her cracked screen glowing, her words a vow. "Lawsuits, press, everything, they're done." The train stood silent, its cars a ghostly line against the plains, the night thick with the scent of ash and betrayal. Evelyn's torn slacks dragged, her bloodied blouse a flag of her fight, her body a wreck but her mind razor-sharp. She'd survived the firebomb, turned the siege into triumph, only for Miles's confession to peel back the train line's skin, exposing a conspiracy that dwarfed her pain. The cops fanned out, their radios buzzing with orders, the Falcon's threat a shadow eclipsed by this corporate rot. Victor's grip steadied her, Marla's evidence a weapon, and Evelyn knew the battle was shifting, the stakes soaring beyond the flames. They'd burned her out, but she'd burn them down, starting now. The plains stretched endless, the stars cold witnesses, the station's embers glowing in the dark. Evelyn's burns throbbed, her cuts bled, but her resolve was afire. No bomb could touch. She'd fought Miles, Harold, the mob, the Falcons, each blow harder, each victory sweeter, only to face this hidden puppeteer. The firefighters retreated, their hoses limp, the cops securing the recorder as evidence. Victor's lawyers were en route, Marla's press contacts buzzing, and the world's outrage was her army. She staggered forward, her torn clothes a testament, her spirit ablaze and braced for the final fight. The train line's heart laid bare. Evelyn Carter stood in the sleek boardroom of Silver Horizon's headquarters, the Midwest skyline sprawling beyond the floor-to-ceiling windows, a gray dawn breaking over the plains. It was days after the station fire, and her 68-year-old frame bore the scars of her ordeal. Her emerald blouse replaced by a crisp navy dress, her arm bandaged beneath the sleeve, her cream slacks swapped for tailored trousers hiding the burns on her thighs. Her silver-streaked hair was swept into a tight bun, her face still etched with ash-faded lines, but her brown eyes blazed with a quiet fury that silenced the room. Victor Carter flanked her, his 6-foot frame in a fresh black suit, his knuckles healed, but his jaw set like stone. Marla Kent stood at her other side, her pinstripe blazer impeccable, a stack of legal files and the scorched recorder on the table before them. The boardroom was a sterile fortress, polished oak table, leather chairs, a wall of screens flickering with stock charts plummeting into the red. The board members sat rigid, 12 men and women in tailored suits, their faces a mix of dread and defiance. At the head loomed Charles Vance, the chair, a billionaire in his 70s, his silver hair slicked back, his gray eyes cold as steel. Miles Grayson's voice crackled from the recorder, replaying its damning confession. "Board paid me to target her. Carter's a threat to their control." Evelyn's stitched arm throbbed, her burns a dull ache, but she held the room, her presence a storm they couldn't weather. She'd survived slaps, fire, knives, mobs, and now stood to bury them. Victor slammed the recorder down, his voice a thunderclap. "You hired that punk to ruin my wife. Assault conspiracy. Your hands are bloody." Charles leaned back, his fingers steepled, his tone smooth as ice. "Allegations, Mr. Carter. No proof ties us directly." Marla slid a file forward, her voice sharp. "Miles's bank records. 10,000 wired from a shell company you own, Vance. Phone logs, too. He called your private line before the slap." The board shifted, whispers rippling, a woman in a pearl necklace clutching her pen tighter. Evelyn stepped closer, her navy dress rustling, her words a blade. "You paid him to slap me, burn me, frame me. I've got scars and 100,000, witnesses online. You're done." The screens flickered, Silver Horizon's stock plunging further, the room's air thickening with panic. Charles's eyes narrowed, his smirk faint. "You've got spirit, Mrs. Carter. But spirit doesn't win here." He snapped his fingers, an aide sliding a thick envelope across the table. $5 million. Sign the NDA, walk away, and this ends quietly. Evelyn's breath caught, her burns flaring as she stared at the offer, a bribe to bury her fight, her pain, her truth. Victor's hand clenched, his voice a growl. "You think money erases this?" Marla flipped open a file, her tone icy. That's an admission. Bribery on record now. We're not signing. Evelyn pushed the envelope back, her stitched arm trembling, her voice rising. I didn't crawl through fire for your hush money. You targeted me because I'm black, because I dared to sit in your precious first class. You'll face the world for it. The boardroom quaked, the members' faces paling, a man in a red tie muttering, "She's bluffing." Charles's smirk faded, his gray eyes glinting with something darker. You're right, he said, his voice low, chilling the room. I orchestrated it. Victor's a loose cannon, owns too much, threatens my control. You were the leverage, Evelyn. Miles was cheap, the Falcon's cheaper, but you're tougher than I thought. The confession hung, a bomb in the silence, the board gasping, some shoving chairs back. Victor lunged, his fist aimed at Charles, but Marla grabbed his arm, her voice urgent. Not now, he's on tape. Evelyn's world spun, her burns and cuts a distant ache against this truth. The slap wasn't just racism, it was a corporate coup, her pain a pawn in Vance's game. She'd survived the train, the fire, the mobs, turned the world's eyes, only for this billionaire to admit he'd pulled every string. Her navy dress clung to her, sweat beading, but she seized the moment, snatching Marla's phone and hitting record. Say it again, Vance, for everyone. Charles froze, his gray eyes widening, but his arrogance held. Fine. I ordered it. Victor's shares threatened my empire. You were collateral, Mrs. Carter. Effective, until you wouldn't break. The board erupted, a woman in a gray blazer, shouting, "Shut up, Charles!" A man in a pinstripe suit bolted for the door, but Marla blocked it, her files a barricade. Evelyn uploaded the stream, her voice steady despite the chaos. This is Evelyn Carter, Silver Horizons chair, confesses, share this. Views soared, 10,000, 50,000, 100,000, comments raging. Take him down! Justice for Evelyn! The room spun, the screens flashing red, the stock crashing as the world watched. Police burst in, badges glinting, voices barking. Charles Vance, you're under arrest. Conspiracy, assault, bribery. Cuffs snapped on his wrists, his gray eyes spitting venom as they dragged him out, his suit crumpling. The board scattered, some pleading, others dialing lawyers, the oak table a battlefield of spilled papers. Evelyn stood tall, her bandaged arm a badge, her navy dress a symbol of her fight. She'd expected capitulation, a clean win, only for Vance's confession to flip it, exposing his empire's rot. Victor pulled her close, his voice rough. We got him, Evelyn. It's over. Marla gathered her files, her cracked tablet glowing, her smile fierce. Stocks tanking, companies toast. The boardroom emptied, cops cuffing stragglers, the skyline graying with dawn. Evelyn's burns ached, her stitches pulling, but her spirit soared, until Victor's phone buzzed, a board member's voice trembling through. Vance's arrest kills us, stocks unsalvageable. We're selling Silver Horizon to a rival. You're out, Victor. Evelyn's breath caught, her triumph souring as Victor's face fell, his empire slipping away. Selling? He roared, slamming the phone down, the oak table shuddering. Marla's eyes widened, her files dropping. They're bailing. To save face, they're dumping it all. The room stilled, the screens flatlining, Silver Horizon's logo fading to black. Evelyn's knees buckled, Victor catching her, her navy dress a stark contrast to the gray dawn. She'd leaked the truth, toppled Vance, felt the world rally, only for this reversal to strip Victor's legacy. The company he'd built, the train line she'd fought on, sold to strangers to bury the scandal. Her burns and cuts, her blood and fire. They'd won the battle, but the war's cost was his dream. We lost it, Victor whispered, his voice breaking, his arm tight around her. Marla gathered her papers, her voice soft. You exposed them, Evelyn. That's power. The cops cleared out, the boardroom a hollow shell, the skyline a mute witness. Evelyn stepped to the window, her bandaged arm pressed to the glass, the plains stretching below, a scarred land mirroring her own. She'd survived Miles's slap. The coffee, the closet, the mob, the tracks, the knife, the firebomb. Each blow a hammer, each victory a chisel shaping her. The live stream had hit millions. Vance was cuffed, Harold and Miles crushed, the Falcons scattered. But Victor's empire was the price. She wasn't a victor, not fully, but a catalyst. Her fight igniting a revolution that toppled giants. The dawn broke, a faint gold threading the gray, and she turned to Victor, her voice steady. "We'll build again. They can't take us." The boardroom stood silent, its leather chairs empty, its screens dark, the oak table scarred with her battle. Evelyn's navy dress rustled, her bandaged arm a testament, her burns a hidden fire. She'd faced the train's elite, the rural, the corporate core, her blackness their target, her resilience their ruin. Victor nodded, his hand in hers, his eyes regaining their steel. Marla packed her files, her cracked tablet a relic of their win, her voice firm. "You changed everything, Evelyn. This isn't the end." The skyline glowed, the plains a vast canvas, and Evelyn knew her slap had sparked more than justice. It had burned an empire to ash, leaving her a legacy bittersweet but unbroken. Evelyn Carter's harrowing journey on the Silver Horizon reveals profound truths about resilience, systemic racism, and the cost of justice. Her story teaches us that courage isn't just surviving a slap, a fire, or a knife. It's standing tall when the world turns against you. Evelyn faced relentless racial injustice, from Miles's initial assault to the board's conspiracy, yet she transformed each blow into a weapon, using her voice to rally millions. This shows that individual defiance can spark collective change, even against overwhelming odds. Her live streams didn't just expose her attackers, they shattered the illusion of untouchable power, proving that truth, amplified, can topple empires. Another lesson lies in the price of victory. Evelyn's fight cost Victor's train line, a bittersweet reminder that justice often demands sacrifice. It's a stark warning. Systemic racism isn't just personal, it's entrenched in institutions, ready to burn everything to protect itself. Her story urges us to look beyond the surface, to question who pulls the strings when hate festers. Finally, Evelyn's unbreakable spirit teaches us that legacy isn't in titles or wealth, but in the ripples of change we leave behind. She didn't just survive, she ignited a revolution. So, what can we take from this? Fight back, speak out, and hold power accountable, no matter the cost. Evelyn's tale is a call to action. Racism thrives in silence, but it crumbles under scrutiny. What would you do if you were her? Keep quiet or burn it all down? Drop a comment with number 1 if you'd fight like Evelyn, number 2 if you'd take the bribe, then hit like and subscribe for more gripping racism stories. Share this to spread her message. Thanks for joining us on this wild ride. Here's to strength, justice, and a world where no one slapped for their seat.